In this tutorial, we're going to be painting up the Andromeda Mini from Corvus Belli's Infinity line. Typically she's for a faction named Aleph, however, due to the sectorial nature of a lot of the factions in the game, she can be taken as a mercenary, and in this case, I'm doing a tabletop commission for her in the O-12 faction. The O-12 paint scheme is predominantly royal blue with gold plates, sort of ostentatious, kind of flashy, but overall really nice. And I'm trying to keep just a little bit of her classic Aleph white scheme in there too, so we're giving her a white cloak and cowl, along with the predominantly white beast that follows her around. Now in this first tutorial, we're going to be going over just the blue armor and how we go about using highlights and shadows. In this case, we're using the actual O-12 paint set that's put out by Vallejo via Corvus Belli as well. So let's get to work and see what we can come up with. Dark Prussian blue is going to be the base color for the O-12 paint scheme. We've got that on our wet palette, so now we're going to go through and make sure we get a nice thin layer on the brush, and we're just going to start applying it in all the areas where this model is going to be blue. Now while this paint goes on very, very dark at first, you'll notice that because I have that white paint in there, as I begin to move it around when it's nice and thin, you can still see the lighter color beneath, and that's exactly what we're going for. So we're just going to keep moving this paint around. We're going to be real patient with it and keep working with thinned paints because we don't want to end up hurriedly dropping a big glob of dark blue. Now I was going to try and do something nifty with these hexagons, but I will just go through and do them the hard way after because it doesn't seem to want to work the way I envisioned it, and you know what? A lot of times that happens. I was going to try something new, and I made a big no-no and decided to try it for the first time on camera, so call me humbled. I think if I was going to try and do what I was attempting, I should have probably used a darker contrast paint to help more complement the zenithal. So we'll do it the old-fashioned way, at least the way that the pamphlet that comes with the paint set suggests. No big deal there. Next color, this flat blue, which was included with the set, and we're going to do a 50-50 mix of flat blue and dark Prussian blue, and we're just going to get this blended up, and we're going to make sure it's nice and thin by taking just a drop of water on the brush and moving that paint around on the wet palette until we can see that there's a nice thin translucent hue coming off the brush. We're going to have to take and carefully mark out. The trick is to try and not brush across them so that we end up breaking up the pattern with paint going in the seams. So we're just going to carefully dot and then sort of move the paint along on each of those hexes. So cleaning off my my double odd brush here, I think I'm just going to have to drop down a brush size to get some finer detail, and we're going to be taking more of the flat blue with just a hint of the dark Prussian blue, and we're going to be doing the same exact thing again, going just a little bit less on all the areas that we just visited with the 50-50 mix until we end up building up our gradient. So, moving on to my triple odd brush here, just going to get this wet, get it acclimated with the palette, get some paint on it, and then we'll be ready to move on here. We're ready to go at Andromeda yet again. And again, using the overhead lamp as a guide, we can see where light is going to hit the model, so we can see where we should focus on our highlights. Now, it's not the do-all end-all, but it is a very useful tool, at least for highlight placement. Alright, so after having applied the higher layer, we can start to see some variance in the blue. And now, the next thing we're going to do is actually work on some shadows and some shading. So, we're going to take some of the black and cut it with just a drop of the dark Prussian blue, and the result is going to be a real rich sort of navy color that's just bordering on true black. And we're going to do the exact opposite of what we've done previously. So we're going to go for the lower points of all of these, and we're just going to sort of glaze in real thin this black navy paint. And it's just going to help pick out these hexagons and any of the sections of armor that's not going to be exposed to a ton of light. And again, this is another one of those steps that you may or may not do several times till you get it right, till you find out that, you know, it works for one part and not for another. But for the most part, we're going to go through and we're just going to hit all these areas little by little with this shadow and see how it looks when it dries. We're also going to take the opportunity to darken some of the areas that may not end up being blue, that we might have gotten blue on in the previous steps, like this area over here. If you got it on her hands, if you got it on any of these belts, you know, that you don't want to keep white for a lighter color, you can always just black them out. When we're done with that step, it should look a bit like this. We're starting to see some highlight, starting to have some definition, got some shadows in there. Now, the next step, according to this painting guide and, you know, the way I usually do things, we're going to mix the flat blue with a bit of this sky blue that they have here. And this is going to be the extreme highlight color. And you'll notice, if you have this paint set, the Vallejo sky blue is pretty thin to begin with. So we're going to take some of this flat blue and we're going to work it into a puddle of the sky blue just to give us a nice blend with the consistent texture. And then we're going to go through and we're going to highlight everything. And now this is going to be one of those steps where you have to go on faith because it's super light until it dries. But once it dries, you'll see you either did it right or you're going back down. We're back after some fixing and some playing with layers and some ups and downs with highlights, and we're finally happy with this here, and she is pretty and blue and highlighted in all the right areas. So from this is what I would call a good done position for this particular type of O-12 armor. And in the next video, we're going to go through and we're going to do some blacking of the weapons and anything that's going to end up being gold, so namely the shoulder pad, the boots, this little leg brace thing here. Not really sure what that is. I usually call this type of stuff hero wear. And then we'll also work on getting the face done. The face or visor. We'll end up doing some blending of this cloak and cowl here, because we're going to keep it white, but we're obviously going to make it look better than this sort of chalky mess that it is right now. And when we do that, we'll also go into the beast, because I'm going to keep the beast predominantly white as well. She's going to contrast really, really good with her like almost Batman looking outfit. So we will see you then, and we'll get this model finished and hand it off as a commission done. So thanks for sticking with me while we get this blue armor done for my commission piece here. If you liked the video, please subscribe, like, leave some comments below. Always happy to hear what anybody has to say. I realize that I am an amateur when it comes to painting in front of a camera. I know that I've been moving it up and moving it down and bouncing it all around while I'm talking. I promise to get better as I get used to this whole painting for an audience sort of deal. But stick with me, and I promise I will deliver some quality product that we can all enjoy, get a good laugh at, and maybe learn to be more successful painters as a result. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you again soon.